welcome to episode 8 of Dungeons and Dax. This is interactive shenanigans with Tannah O'Banion. Tannah, thank you so much for coming on, and it's wonderful to finally meet you.
And thank you for having me. It's so funny that you say that because in my head, I feel like I know you so well, but you've
That's
never
because you've
actually
met me. You've
spoken.
met Dax. What are you
Yeah, but you've never spoken to me. You've only ever spoken to a character I played.
So, those of you who don't know Tannah, she's awesome, and she has done a lot of work at Evermore Park, and that is where I met Tannah. You were a caroler. I'm playing Lady Violet.
I was.
And since then, so many awesome things have happened for your character and for your career. And let's talk about those things because they're exciting for me. I've been following that for years. But then I want to get to know Tana finally for the
Okay.
first time. So tell us about how you became Lady Violet.
Well, I do a lot of theater, and I was in a show with an individual that used to work at the park, and he gave my name to the original creative team, and so they reached out to me and they said, "Hey, can you come in?" And I said, "Sure." And so I went in and we had a chat, and they were really really nice. They had me read a monologue, and then they were like, "Great, we're gonna have you come in and be one of our carolers for our Christmas season." And I said, "That sounds so fun." And I got to sing, and it was really really fun because that's really all they wanted me for is just for me to sing.
You
And
have a wonderful voice.
you're very nice.
You have a terrible poker face.
Okay.
Terrible poker face.
Yes, I will say, but the more I got used to the way that people interact with the actors, or rather with me in the park, the better I got.
I don't know. I beg to differ. You see how I remember Lady Violet being the caroler. My wife was invited up. You were bringing people to carol with the carolers, and you were giving them
Around the
music
fire.
around the fire. It was awesome. It was snowy. It was magical. It was beautiful. And my wife used to be in choir. I used to be in choir. I didn't tell you that, but she volunteered, and you got to share music with her. And then we started making faces at you
Yeah,
during your performances,
I remember that.
and you tried so hard play it cool, to stay focused. But we got you to break so many times. And so we kept coming back again and again to Evermore. It was before we had little creatures of our own to take care of.
Yeah.
Bethany and I would come frequently that winter. And every time we're like, where's Lady Violet? We need to go mess her up.
Okay, to be fair, I would stop singing, like, I would break character singing, but I wouldn't break, like, Violet character. I sing in character, but I
Dang.
definitely I there's just
That is an
I
important distinction.
it is a very important distinction, but I will say this, favorites are a thing. People, even actors at Evermore, have favorite patrons of the park, and you 2 still to this day, because I don't act in the park very much anymore now that I am behind the scenes, but you and your wife are, in my opinion, the top tier individuals that would
Oh,
come to the park. The best, the best.
oh.
So, it was more of a comfort level, and, like, you guys are being really fun, and, like, I can Violet can be herself, which is essentially a British version of me.
It's so great hearing you with an American accent. I love it.
Yeah, because you only ever heard a
Mhm.
Surrey type accent. That's so funny.
But yeah, we loved coming to see you. And Violet became so much more than just a caroler part. We were talking a little bit before the stream about some of the work you put into this character. And as you were doing that, I'm like, no, save it for the stream.
Oh, yeah.
It's good stuff. But now is your time. Tell us, how did Lady Violet become the complex, three-dimensional character that everyone in?
Well, it started behind the scenes, and it also was influenced by the patrons of the park, or we call them world walkers. So, when Violet became a character, just a caroler, they only gave me her name, which was Lady Violet Atkinson, and the daughter of a famous judge in London. That was it. And so, during rehearsals, getting ready for our summer season, which was Mythos 2019, I became really good friends with 2 individuals who shout out to Cade and Cameron, they played Ozymandias and Maxwell. and we didn't have a lot of direction, and so we actually created our backstories of our characters together, and we wove them together. Ozymandias knew Violet's father, who was a corrupt judge, all this fun stuff, and it just kind of unfolded, and then I had a meeting with the creative team that let me know at the time that they had plans for my character, but they didn't tell me what those plans were, and so I essentially just made Violet I wanted her to be the better version of who I am, which was just, like, really, really nice and always super approachable, and, I mean, this is how I am normally, but Violet was like, "Hello, welcome to the park, it's lovely to meet you, blah, blah, blah."
Oh,
Oh.
it's so good to hear that again.
And she became the one of the first people that you would meet when you come in, and as a patron of the park, you look for somebody who's familiar, like that first person, just because it's like, "Oh, you're that almost like a safe space," and throughout the season, she went through some stuff, her barn was burnt down.
Her
Uh,
burn barn, her barn
yeah,
burned,
yeah. All this
Burberg.
drama. She had a love interest, and then the ultimate, like, ending of the season was her being elected as mayor, and obviously, the behind the scenes, they had plans for her, they wanted her to be the mayor, but I asked them because I'm this person, I was like, did you have to, like, fake the numbers?" And they said very honestly, they said, "No," and they would show me the numbers of counting, and they actually Violet would be the one that would win at the end of every voting. And so,
We voted
like
for you. Well,
thank you. For me, you voted for Violet.
yeah, voted for Violet.
But,
Just
um,
stand a character.
but she ended up not needing the the story team to make it so they've, like, messed up the or, like, fudged the numbers. It was the World Walkers who chose her to be the mayor, and so, um,
You won an election the old-fashioned way,
I did.
just by being
100%.
nice. You didn't
I
even have
keep
to run a
saying I
smear
did,
campaign
but
against the other candidates.
again,
You didn't even have to run a smear campaign against the other candidates. It was just nice and wholesome, the way democracy should be. I love it.
that's so funny. 100%, I agree with that. But that's funny because there were if I like, now that we're talking about it, I remember all of these conversations of people being like, "Well, let's spread rumors." I'm like, "No," because again, like, my number one thing when I was creating her was that she was kind and honest, and she was all about uplifting people. Like, we have these things called lotsies, which are essentially individual quests or activities that you can do to earn at the time it was gold, which was the currency of the park.
I still have my bag of gold.
Yeah. So for Violet, her Loxy was compliments. So I would look at that. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Wow, she's rich. Look at that.
This was, my gold and Bethany's gold that we saved up for like a year, and I dropped some of it on the floor.
That's okay.
Those of you listening and not watching, there are little gold nuggets. Well, they're little pieces of gravel painted gold.
Also, if you hear any dog noises, my dog is sleeping right next to me. So just wanted to for anybody listening. But yeah, so her Lotsie was either having you go out and talk to a complete stranger and compliment them based on I would try really hard to avoid looks because I feel like our world is way too obsessed with what people look like. So I would try to have them have a conversation and learn something about an individual and compliment them based on that. If it was a stranger situation, but if it was a family situation or friends or I would love it when there were kids because I would have the kids compliment their parents, specifically their moms, because I feel like I mean, I told you this before, but I feel like moms don't get thanked enough for all that they do. Same with dads. I feel like vice
No,
versa.
dads get to be the cool one.
Yeah.
Not that.
I mean, yeah. Growing I have the best parents in the whole wide world, but they were pretty equal in, like, good cop, bad cop. So they took turns. But yeah, it was so fun to watch because it was heartwarming really because the kids would compliment the moms or say thank you or whatever, and then the moms would actually get pretty emotional, and Very, very sweet, and then they would get their gold and run off, and it was so, so fun, and Violet kept that up until she was no longer the mayor. S
No longer the mayor. What happened? Did you get deposed?
She did not get deposed. The town
Executed?
she was framed, actually,
Mm.
and so she was removed from office, and her deputy mayor, Vayella, if you remember her, she was an Elven Ranger. She took over, and this was the transition because they wanted me to come in and play the villain, because I had played Violet for 5.5 seasons, and they were like, "Girl, it's time. It's time for you to be a different character," and I was like, "I welcome this. Thank you so much." I love Violet, don't get me wrong. If I could, I mean, it's old lore and she's a character that I still get messages from people asking about how she is, and which is really, really, really sweet for me because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I played this character that people ended up really loving. I love her too." So, shout out to all those people that still send me messages. But but yeah, so she ended up being framed and she was later proven innocent, but she decided to go off to London and be with her sister and find out what was happening with her romantic relationship with Mr. Philip Humphreys, the postman.
He was my other favorite.
Yeah.
When I found out that there was, like, a love interest subplot going on, I shipped that so hard.
Well, you and there were a lot of people.
Because not only would you get people to compliment each other, but Philip made it his personal mission to learn each and every guest's name.
Yep,
And when they came back, he would remember their names, remember little details about them. And, we felt special because he remembered our name, but then we would just sit back and watch other people. We thought we were the exclusive ones, right? We were top tier guests, but no, that he was just that nice and that awesome too. Everybody.
and
And
you
when there were all
never
these
wrote anything
subplots and
down.
main plots going on where, you know, plagues were infecting Evermore before plagues were cool. They were winter. I don't even remember the main plots as much. I had more fun hanging out with the side characters like you and Philip Humphreys. It was a nice, like, cozy slice of life in the middle of this, conflicted fantasy world.
I agree. I I loved because I only ever world walked the one time when I was, like, trying to figure out what it was, in between the time that they had me come in and between the time when I was in park, and it was so fun to watch. Like, there were the main characters, but I mean, side note, the main characters are the world walkers to us. Like, our main thing is to make you guys the heroes of the story. It just so happens that our characters are help we're the PCs. But Philip, specifically, the actor who played him, love him to death. His name is Brad. He never wrote anybody's names down, ever. That was just his brain remembering. It was so,
Mm.
so incredible. And obviously, I remembered the people that I really, really loved, like you and your wife. And I don't know if you want me to share names, so I won't. So, but you
You
and
can
your
share
wife
her
and
name. You can share her
a couple other people. So I love Bethany
name. Bethany's great. Shout out to Bethany.
and like Pit Plum and oh my gosh, and Rachel, Evermore Adventurous, but now she's
Mhm.
Ever Adventurous. There are a couple individuals that just near and dear to the heart.
So what are you up to these days? We know Evermore has been through a lot of periods of change when they've been adapting their model. I'm also a business owner, so I'm fascinated with the behind the scenes things of, how things work and how things are profitable. They're doing a lot more markets and there's more of a focus on vendors. But what are some of the cool things that are changing that make you excited?
Events, really, we're doing more special event type situations, like, we just actually had our first murder mystery in the park last weekend
Rippers
was our
Cove.
first yes, Rivers Cove. That stuff is really exciting. The tea parties that we have are so fun. So if you ever wanna see me in character, a lot of times I will be characters for those because it's easier for me to also run the show, but also make sure that the show is working and facilitate in character. So if you ever wanna participate in that regard, I highly recommend it. They're so much fun. A lot of work and rehearsal goes into that. But my favorite season is lore
Ooh,
because
the
I'm
spooky season.
yes, if you can see in the background here, I've got, like, this rainbow Jack and Sally painting that I got at Tannah
Yes.
last year when I was working the booth, but yeah,
I have
definitely.
my Evermore coins. Where am I more? Here's one of them at
Oh my
circus
goodness.
town. And then my absolute favorite coin. I collect a lot of different fantasy coins and I use their steps in my games. I think my favorite one that I have is this season of lore with the
Ah,
vampire skull on it and Grail on the back.
what season was that? Does it say?
Evermore lore 2019
Okay,
in the before time.
and the before times 2019. The 2019
We were
was
so
so
young
intense.
back then.
It was so intense because Violet got attacked by those all the plagued people, and I actually end up little behind the scenes stuff. They weren't supposed to attack me when they did, and it ended up me ripping my dress because
Oh no.
because they weren't supposed to, and I was, like, running around, I was like, "You guys." But we were it was crazy, and so one of my favorites shout out to this family, Ross and his family. They actually stood by me while I tried to fix my dress because it had ripped so bad. So they put
They're
up a
making it like
wall.
a human shield wall to
Yeah, and so I put my cloak over it, and I was like, "Ugh, well, repair rack, here it comes." But yeah, so to to where I am now, so when the pandemic hit, obviously things happened, and so the park had to make some adjustments, and so the individuals that were asked to be the directors, like the COO at the time, well, yeah, he's the COO, and my boss, she's the director of entertainment. She was actually an actor in the park. They both were. He was, if I remember, he was Acolyte, and he was one of the triple Aries. And then she was the Spider Princess, if you remember her, and
okay.
she was also a fairy.
The acolytes, they were the ones in the spooky bird masks
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
long flowing cloaks. Very cool.
So fun. Such fun characters. But mm, I became really, really good friends with Adrian, and, so she's my boss. But we would Marco Polo all the time, and we were just talking about, like, what our dreams were, and I obviously, my ultimate dream is to be on Broadway and to do film and stuff because, 1, I'm a plus size individual, and I feel like more representation for plus size people should be out there, but I also really, really wanted to get into casting, and I wanna work for Disney in casting. I think that is, like, my ultimate if I could snap my fingers, I would be doing casting for Disney. And she remembered that conversation, and so when she was building her team, she asked me if I wanted to, and I said, "Yeah." So she originally made me the casting director, which I still do that, but then some shifts happened behind the scenes about 9 months into the brand new creative team, and then she made me the assistant director, and so I do the casting, but I also organize a lot of stuff. And so she and I have an incredible working relationship. We have this work-life balance with each other. We can have a conversation where it's like, "Okay, this is boss Adrian to boss Tannah, and this is bestie Adrian to bestie Tannah." Like, we're saying, "Okay, quick side." And we always preface it with that because we also wanna make sure that we're not crossing or blurring those
Yeah,
lines of work to friendship, so it's very much a family behind the scenes, and we have an incredible costuming department. Christy is absolutely wonderful, one of my dear friends. We actually just went to the Tulip Festival together a couple weeks ago.
very cool.
But yeah, so I'm the I organize all of the auditions that you see and the callbacks, everything that happens. We sit down and we create the characters together. We create the backstories of them. We collaborate on what we want their aesthetic to be. Ken, who owns the park, will have a conversation with Adrienne, and then she has this incredible mind. It's so incredible. I cannot express or, like, boost her more, but what she comes up with is so magical. It's fantastic, and then being able to be a part of creating that and bringing it to life is one of the coolest. It's like a puzzle piece, in which I'm sure you understand what that is because you're a professional DM,
Yeah.
right? So, it's really fun to see all of that come together, and then my ultimate favorite part, Dax, is literally watching these actors, I cast them, and then we sit down and we work, and I provide them with their information, right? And I work on their accents with them. I'm the dialect coach. So Scottish and Irish, and we try to avoid French because it's really hard to understand sometimes if you're really, really good at a French accent. So then there's the RP and just standard British. And then sometimes we bring an American because it's really fun to have that. But my favorite part is when the park is open and you see all of the preparation that my actors have put in and bringing it to life and seeing the joy on the patrons or the world walkers' faces, and it's them getting fan art and YouTube stories made of them and all of these beautiful photos. It's so cool. It's like, "Oh, there's my kid."
They're
Ugh,
just grown up. No, this is cool. I've never been a casting director, but every time I start a new campaign, I'm meeting with players and helping them bring their characters to life, finding out what their play style is, what sort of their strengths are, and what
yeah.
emotional needs they have when they're gaming. And then I work to meld their backstories with the plot of the campaign so that they feel like the heroes. And I love that Evermore has that same mindset that, the guests, they're the heroes and everything else is designed to support them. And so the NPCs that I create in my games also, I can't think of them as the heroes. It's the players that come in to make people feel awesome. That's
Yeah.
what we do, Tana. We make people feel awesome.
That's the best part. I I cannot that's my there's not enough kindness ever. Like in any of my bios that I write for a playbill that I'm in or in a show that I'm in, a program, the end of it will be "Have courage and be kind" from Cinderella, and it starts with that. It's like our ultimate goal, and that's actually Ken's biggest thing, the owner of the park. He cares so, so, so much about the experience of the guests. He just wants people to have fun and whatever that may look like, but the park is literally like a love letter to people and wanting them, the creative individuals out there, to have a place to be who they are and to just be happy. So, kindness is really
I
important.
love that. I love that. We talked about Ripper's Cove, which was the most recent event.
Yeah,
Any other events you can tell us about that are coming up? Any secret ones that you are at liberty to talk about?
not secret ones, but we will have another Ripper's Cove in the spooky time, so around September. Not like a Ripper's Cove, it'll be another murder mystery.
It'll be
Um,
Ripper's Cove, but spookier.
ooh, yes, actually,
Twice
yes.
as much murder, just as much mystery.
Murder. And we will have another tea party. This one will be Pirates versus Knights. So that'll be really, really fun. It's more geared towards kids, but our first one was Alice in Evermore. It was like a Alice in Wonderland adjacent theme, and I was the Red Queen,
Excellent.
and
Did you
it
get to
we
say the line? You know which line I'm talking about. Did you get to say
n
the line?
the off with your head.
Yes!
I did say it to the
Uh,
individual playing the Hatter, but we have to be careful because obviously, there's copyright issues, and
mhm.
we don't play with that stuff.
Yeah,
So we
because Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, the book, is in the public domain.
yes,
The
and that's what we
Disney
base it
version, the stuff that comes from the Disney version, that is not, and they will hold on to that as
yes,
tightly
they
as they
will.
possibly can.
Yes, so it was the public domain stuff that we played with, but so, yeah, so we're having another one, and they're geared more towards kids because 'cause they're we just want kids to have a lot of fun too, but it was so interesting because a lot with the first tea party, it was a lot more adults, like, there were barely any children out there, which was so fun, and I just love I saw this post recently where someone was talking about how in every kid, there's an adult waiting to grow up, and in every adult, there's a kid waiting to come out, and I see that at Evermore, and I also see that in other productions that I'm a part of as well with, like, the musical theater and
Mhm.
oh, it people get to play and release a part of them that they haven't seen in a really long time, and it's so beautiful. It's almost healing in a way.
You mentioned musical theater, and I am fascinated at the wall that is behind you that is covered
Oh,
in playbills. Are these shows you've seen or shows that you've starred in?
the both actually, they're playbills from stuff I've been in, but also I love going to see Broadway shows. So, yeah, it's a work in progress, as you can see. It's like
There's
I have
still
a whole
more wall to be covered. What are the some of your favorite roles and some of your dream roles that you want to play?
Okay. Favorite roles that I've played, Mrs. Elton in the regional premiere of Emma the Musical, if you know Jane Austen. She was a delight. I love her so much. Miss Flannery in Thoroughly Modern Millie. I tend to play the comedic side characters. That's like
Mhm.
me, Jennifer Coolidge. That's not the main character, but just like comes on stage and is absolutely hilarious. That's
Side characters and the villains are the most fun anyways. I'm always
yes.
so
And then Adela is one of Ariel's sisters in the Little Mermaid skit. And then villain-wise, The Drowsy Chaperone was a dream role, and I got to play her in The
because you were
Drowsy
the
Chaperone.
star. You were the
Yeah,
drowsy chaperone of the drowsy
I
chaperone.
was the Drowsy Chaperone, absolute dream, which is so funny. Sorry, side tangent. I was in that show 10 years before. I was in it again here, and I had played a different character, and I told myself the first time I did it that one day I would play the Drowsy Chaperone, and then 10 years later, it's so funny because I got an award for best female cameo, for the character at the time was Trix that I played in the first go around, and then while I was in like, we were open to the public, my Facebook memories reminded me of the award that I got and how I was in like, at the exact same time. It was so crazy. But yeah, then I was the drowsy chaperone.
Did you get
And
to
then
put your hand on the shoulder of the new tricks and be like, someday, 10 years from now, you too can be the drowsy chaperone. Keep dreaming.
oh my gosh, I didn't, but I should have. Her name is Abby, and she's incredible. I love her so much. The girl who played her in When I Was Drowsy. But then villain-wise, favorite role was actually my character that came in right after Violet was gone. Her name was Sigrun Helmsted. She was
Oh,
Slavic. She was from Aurora.
that
But sh
is such an epic name. Can you say that again with menace?
Sigrun. She was
Secret.
great. Sigrun. I loved her. She was she actually was the character that showed me that I had more range. Because again, I'm usually just the comedic relief character, or in this case, I was the really, like, just meek and loving motherly type character, whereas Sigrun came in and it was like, death upon everyone. So it was really and I got to learn stage combat with that. There was a lot of really neat things that happened with that villain. But I would say those are my favorite roles that I've played. And then dream roles, I wanna be Rosie in Mamma Mia, which if I do this right there, that's a playbill for Mamma Mia.
Yep.
I wanna be Ursula in the Little Mermaid skit. Absolute dream. I'm a little bit too old now, but I would love to be Tracy Turnblad in Hairspray. But I'm too tall for her. She's supposed to be short and stout, and I'm I'm chunky, but I'm also 5'9", so and then Glinda in Wicked, which most people are like, "I wanna be Elphaba." I'm over here like, "No, I wanna be Glinda." She's the comedic relief, but she's also got this complex character growth that a lot of people don't pay attention to, that
And
I'm
she's an antagonist through most of it.
Yeah, she
She is
is.
an antagonist.
Ugh, I love it.
Um,
And then there's some shows that I don't like very much that I would love to be in so that I could gain an appreciation. And so, yeah, those would be I would guess I would consider dream roles as well, but they're not like my go-to, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's that.
you mentioned you wanted to ask me about my theater experience. It has
Yes.
been over a decade since I've been in an actual play. In high school and in college, that was my life. If I wasn't doing school plays, I was doing community theater. I did a lot of shows over at the Empress Theater in Magna, and,
Yes!
I was constantly in shows, like 3 or 4 a year, and in straight plays and in musicals. Didn't get to play any of my dream roles in that brief period of my life. And when I got back to college, declared my major, I got really busy and still did improv, still did D&D, but haven't been in a musical since, haven't been in an actual play since. I've been on stages, right? I've
Yeah,
done performances with games and I've been panelist, and a lot of those skills have carried on, but part of me wonders if I'll ever get back to actual play on stage. Maybe
I need
someday,
you
maybe
to.
someday.
I need you to. I need to see you in action.
One role that I actually played twice, once at a summer camp and later at the Empress Theater, I was an Arsenic and Old Lace.
I've never
Um,
seen that show.
oh, you would love Arsenic and Old Lace. It's about 2 sweet little old ladies who
Sign me up.
poison lonely men who come into their house as a service and as a kindness to them, and they bury their bodies in the cellar. It's a very dark comedy, and there are 3 brothers in it who all have their own issues, and I was Jonathan, the serial killer, who one of the twists of the show is he finds out that his nice, sweet old aunts have actually killed more people than him, and he's very, very upset about
What?
it.
Oh
And
my gosh!
part of this character is he's supposed to look like Boris Karloff. And, I just have high cheekbones and a deep voice. And back then, I had hair on my face, but I shaved my beard for this role. My hair was black and slicked back, and I had scars all over my face. And I made a little girl in the audience cry.
This
That
is good acting.
that is a major milestone. Like, it was
Yeah.
a defining moment in my acting career. Made a little girl cry. And then her aunt who brought her was like, "Hey, you made my niece cry. She wants to just know how nice you are because we know you're nice, Dex. We know you're sweet. So here she is." And I just gave her a glare and she ran away.
You're like, "No, I'm not ruining this.
Um,
I'm not gonna be the nice guy. I'm gonna make sure that she knows."
so yeah, so I did Jonathan twice.
Oh, fun.
I've been one of the brothers in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I did
Were
Ensemble
you
in Les Mis at my high school.
were you Ruben?
I was Dan.
You were Dan,
I was
okay.
Dan. Yeah, yeah. They're like Dan, Dax sounds the same. So
Sure,
Um,
sure.
I did Pirates of Penzance twice, actually.
I love that
Um,
show. I love
someday I would love to
that
be the
show.
Pirate King.
Oh,
Someday I would love to be the Pirate King. And you could be the Ruth to my Pirate King. Like, can you
oh,
imagine that?
sure.
Can you imagine that? That would be so cool. My absolute dream role. And, I haven't kept up on voice lessons or anything. So you know, not an operatic singer, but I would love to play Sweeney Todd.
I wanna be Mrs. Levitt. Listen, the Grand in Salt Lake is doing that this October.
Oh, well, I'll get someone
So,
who probably has a lot more voice experience than I do, but Sweeney
you don't
Todd is
you never know.
maybe 10 years from now. If I start now, I know we'll audition, we'll be small little minor characters. And then 10 years from now, we'll go back
Yeah.
and then we will be the leads.
We're gonna be like Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler, where they only do shows together every 10 years. That's our dynamic.
Yeah, I'd love to do Sweeney Todd. I did not like the Tim Burton Johnny Depp movie at all. I am very upset with it.
That's how I
But
feel about Cats.
Cats wasn't good to begin with, was it?
Okay. Okay, you're gonna judge me and people watching might judge me as well, but that's actually my favorite musical.
Huh, okay.
The
Yeah,
29
yeah,
listen,
yeah.
I've studied it, so I actually know that there's a
You
little bit of a
studied it.
plot.
There's things to study. Is there like an academic track to understand the deeper meaning? Isn't it just about cats?
On the surface, yes. I did my junior year term paper on Cats the Musical, and so I learned a lot about where it came from and character development for each of the characters and what each character wanted, like, there's a lot that goes into it. But the 2019 version of Cats the Musical is the most disrespectful and, like, it's so rude because it showcases terrible, terrible, terrible CGI. and Jennifer Hudson's snot was, like, the number 1 star that I remember, and Cats to me, the musical is the epitome of human creativity because I mean, every
Wait, wait,
show is
wait, wait.
incredible.
Let's quote that. You think Cats the Musical is the epitome of human creativity?
Yeah, judge me if you want. Every show showcases incredible creativity from pe human beings are incredible what they do, but for me at the time when I had first seen Cats, it was the acting, like, you're portraying a cat, which I thought was so fascinating, and they have it down, and then the costuming, the costume design, the set design, the music, the vocals, the dancing, everything together, I was like, "What a weird piece of art," and yet it's so beautiful, and it shows what a human can do creativity-wise, and then I was introduced to more shows, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh," like, it's what introduced me to theater, and I
And then they
love it
had to
so
put
much.
CGI all over it.
And then that 2019 version came out. Listen, if you want a good version of it, watch the 1998 version. It is so good.
So good. I don't know if we'll ever share the stage for cats. I'm more of a dog person.
I love dogs
So
too. Look, you can see my dogs behind me. Wait, over here.
other
These
side,
are
yeah.
paintings, watercolor paintings that my friends gave me.
Now, even though I haven't been on stage for a long time, I still get to express that creativity. I still get to interact with other people in collaborative storytelling, right?
Yeah.
I run, D&D games for a living, and it's so much fun taking the shy players and giving them characters that they're passionate about and seeing them step into those roles and become awesome, right? That's what we do. We make people feel awesome.
Wait, so
What
I'm curious then. So do you create the characters and like you go through the character sheet and figure out what their stamina is and like all of this stuff?
Great question. No, those are decisions that they make, but I walk them through the process step by
Okay.
step. One, to make sure that I want people to have viable characters. I don't have them overpowered, broken characters, but, so that they are good at the things they want to be good at.
Mm.
I read all the rule books so that my players don't have to if they don't have the time. But I talk to them about what sort of characters inspire them, what sort of movies or books that they like, to get a feel for how they want to express themselves, how they want to feel awesome. And so I'll make suggestions, and sometimes they take my suggestions, sometimes they don't. And I'll work together with them to build their backstory, and fit it into the campaign that I have. So if I run the same campaign for two different parties, I'm going to run it in two very different ways because there are different characters in play and they make different choices that affect the narrative. That's another thing I loved about Evermore is the narrative would change based on decisions that world walkers made or key events that were turning points that would take things in a different trajectory. I get to do that, and it's a lot of fun. And you confessed to me before the stream, and I'm gonna feel like I have to call you out. That You've only played D&D one time.
Yeah, listen, you can call me out on a lot of things. I've shared that I love
You
Cats the
like cat?
Musical. Yeah, I think it's incredible. D&D, I think it's a fun game. There's so much to it, but I actually find more joy watching people play because I love movies, I love film, I love reading, I love books. Like, I even love video games that have story, but I have found that I like to watch it. Like, I actually sit in my office so I have 3 jobs. I have 3 full-time jobs, so I don't sleep a lot. But one of them, I work for
Two
criminal
full-time
background.
jobs. If it's 8 hours a day, that's no sleep at all.
Yeah, so, you can imagine that my evenings are packed and my weekends are packed, so but my job, my 8 to 5 is I work for a criminal background screening company, so
Cool.
I legally stalk people through the court system, so I know a lot about a people and their criminal history. But I sit in my office and I actually listen to her name is Kelsey Impeachus May, Impeacha K actually, but that's her sim. She plays The Sims professionally, and I
Oh,
love The Sims, but why I'm telling you that is because I love the joy that people get playing the game, and I love hearing their creativity or their ideas, especially the DMs. Like, we had a really neat event that happened at Evermore a couple weeks ago called the Convergence.
Mhm.
If you know who Quincy is from Quincy's Tavern,
Love
they
his content.
he's amazing and the nicest dude, nicest guy.
My wife got into Quincy during the pandemic, into watching his content, I mean,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh, he's doing this tavern, he just talks at the tavern." I'm like, "That's a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of it first?" So I decided I was gonna go hate watch Quincy's Tavern, and you can't. You can't. I was like, "This guy had such a good idea. I can't believe oh, oh, he's so sweet, and I feel seen, and, oh, I wanna go to this tavern." And, like, 2 videos in, and I just melted and became a Quincy stan. Just such a nice guy.
He's amazing. He really is, and going back to the kindness thing, I actually had a conversation with him on the 2nd or no, the last day of the Convergence, the conference is essentially it was a D&D whatever, whatever. It was very heavily influenced by D&D, but we were talking about how I mean, good and bad comes with a lot of stuff that we do, right? And I experienced a lot of bad as Violet Atkinson, and my that sometimes overshadows some of the really good things, and I was having a conversation with him and this other lady that works at Evermore. She's lovely. Her name is Wendy, and she was talking about how sometimes patrons of the park will get a little bit too into the game and get kind of mean sometimes. And we were talking about how Quincy we never experienced that with that whole week of the Convergence. We never experienced anybody being cruel or mean because they felt like they could or because they wanted their character to be that. Everybody was so kind. It was very much like gay pride to me in the sense that when I go to Pride, all you feel is love and acceptance, and that's what it was with the Convergence. The kindness was literally the driving force, and that's what I feel like he welcomes in. And so it was so fascinating to watch that and the way he interacted with his guests, and that's essentially why I like D&D, but the Convergence, we had D&D games, we had, like I think they're called one shots. Again,
Yeah,
I'm
one
not well
shot,
versed
a
in it.
game that has a beginning and an end,
Yeah,
wraps it all up in one session, one shot.
and we had a lot of those, and people wanted to play, and it was I say this a lot, but it was magical watching it because these people, they heal from it, and maybe that's a driving force for you and wanting to be being the professional DM is not only fun for you, but also to see what it does for people, and I think that's why I love watching it. I I again, I don't have a lot of free time, so that's why I enjoy, like, listening to it, podcasts and stuff like that, but I can't participate in it because I have to work a lot.
I'm kind of the same way. I don't get to be a player very often, running the games,
Yeah.
helping them. It's nice to just get home, play a video game by myself, and be a protagonist for one.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm always the villain. I'm always the villain, but I'm such a nice guy on the inside. I'm scary looking and scary sounding.
Scary looking and scary sounding. I was
Yeah.
actually listening to you talk, I was thinking you could narrate audiobooks, and I would gladly listen to them and fall asleep to them. Your voice is incredible.
Oh, I put you to sleep. That makes me sad.
No, that's a compliment,
What I'll need to do is I'll have to read some scary audiobooks.
which I would
Go to
listen to and
sleep
gladly
and
relax you.
dream horrid dreams as my voice infiltrates the crevices of your mind, haunts you. I
I
just made that
welcome it. I work for a criminal background screening company and a theme park that their like, biggest, most wonderful I mean, all the seasons are great, but we love the dark stuff.
up.
So, we at work at the criminal background screening, we actually we read a lot of pretty intense charges, obviously, and when we get, like, a murder charge, we will actually go and look for there are multiple podcasts, like, murder podcasts and stuff, and we
Are
will
you a
find
fan of Only
podcasts
Murders
about
in the Building?
Say again?
Only Murders in the Building on
Watch it,
Hulu.
love it, I'm
Oh,
obsessed.
so good.
I
So
love it. But also it's got Martin Short and Steve Martin in it and my queen, Selena. I'm obsessed.
she held her own and she owned that show.
She really did.
I heard it was those guys and her, and I'm like, "Is she gonna be that good?" No, she was that good. She was. I was a doubter. She made me a believer.
Steve Martin is actually, like him and Jennifer Coolidge are my comedic idols. Like, I'm obsessed with I
Very
think they're
cool.
so good. And Tina Fey.
So and Tina Fey, yeah, she's wonderful,
But
and
that's
she
also
was
'cause
in
she's got a
Only
scar on her
Murders.
face because I have a scar on my face. I have
You
multiple
have a
scars
cool
on it.
story about how you got the scar?
So when I was little I love dogs. I love dogs, but when I was little, I wanted to be a drummer, and dogs have soft spots on their tails, much like a bebe on their head, but I was making my own sweet beats, and I tapped my dog on the tail on the tail with a stick, and he actually it hurt him, so he retaliated, and he actually ripped my face off. So, like, I have a you
What?
could probably you can kinda maybe see it. I have a horseshoe scar
No.
that goes
Um,
here, up, and then he almost took my eye out, so I have an it looks like a cursive F, and then he ripped my cheek off, and they had to graft it together, and this looks like a velociraptor.
that is a terrifying story. Oh my gosh.
And then I have a scar across my chin right here, so you can see it in the shadow, and then he ripped my lip off of my mandible or my jaw, and so they had to sew it back on. So, they reconstructed half of my face.
Wow. Well, it's a good face. Good job. Good.
Thanks. But yeah, that's why I love Tina Fey because 'cause I'm like, "Girl, she got" I mean, her if you read her book, it's pretty intense, like my story, but that's why I'm like, she's got a scar on her face, and she's absolutely stunning. Ugh, I love her. I love
I
her
like
so
have
much.
chills thinking of that story right now. I have little kids and I want them to be safe and
Yeah.
like dogs.
I
Whoa.
love dogs. I'm a dog trainer. Like, I'm not afraid of them, so
Yep.
just
You are the dominant now.
I am. I
You are
am
alpha over those
so
dogs.
much
No dog will ever bite you again
well,
and
that's not true.
conquer them.
I got bit on my mission. I served a mission for my church, and I got bit on my mission because we were doing service, and they were like, "Can you try my dog?" And I was like, "Sure." And it bit my hand, and I was like it didn't hurt as much as this, obviously, but I've been
I
bit a
have
couple times.
I have a 13-year-old border collie. She's very old, very sweet, very smart girl. She doesn't get to play fetch as much as she used to because she's so old, but
Yeah.
if she ever, bit my 3-year-old, I would know that he started it and he deserved it because she is so sweet and so mild-mannered, and my 3-year-old is the 3
You right. See, that's
yeah.
the thing. You learn about your animal and their personality, and you know. Like, the dog that bit me, I loved him so much, he was my best friend. His name was Gonzo, but he we didn't work with him, we didn't give him a true opportunity to, like, be the goodest boy he could be. So, the poor thing.
Poor Gonzo.
Yeah.
Right.
RIP, my sweet
Well, Tana, it has been so awesome talking to
I know, I love you so much, seriously.
you. You
I
were
love you
awesome.
so much. You and
You
your
need
wife
to come hang
just
out with me and Bethany because we
I
still
would
talk about
love it.
you.
I
We
would
still
love
talk
it.
about you. We were so excited when we became Facebook friends with you, and then we had never hung out because the world ended and
Yeah, I
didn't end,
know.
and here we are in the aftertime.
I'm just, like, super honored that you shout out to your previous guests for saying that they like working with me, but, like,
Oh, yeah, Rachel Ann thinks you're great. Courtney thinks you're great.
I
Jamie
love
thinks you're great.
I love them. I love
So they
them so
kept bringing you up, and I'm like, "Okay, it's time. It's time to actually meet Tana
much.
because Lady Violet was great, but now I actually get to meet Tana, and I'm hoping that we find cool ways to collaborate in the future. Maybe a Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett, we'll see. Maybe something else. We'll work up to that. It's part of the 10-year plan.
Yeah, 10-year, 20-year, every 10 years.
You see, you can play those characters at any age,
You
so
can.
it's
You
fine.
really
They can be
can.
young, they can be old, like, we can't age out of them.
Yeah.
Awesome, well, thank you so much. And what do you want our listeners to know? Where can they find you? What should they do to get more Tannanigans in their life?
Literally follow me on Instagram, Tannanigans. It's literally just Tannanigans. I do this thing called You're the Onesie I Want, where my incredible friends that I meet at the theaters out here, we sing Broadway songs in onesies. I have a closet I would show you, but my room is a mess right now. But I have 40 onesies and we
40 onesies?
Yes.
Oh
I
my
love them.
gosh.
I love onesies, I really do. So, anyway, yeah, so they pick onesies out or they have their own and they come on and so, yeah, You're the Onesie I Want, that's on the TikTok and Instagram.
You're gonna send me a
And
link to that, and I'm gonna put that in the description when I repost this so that everybody can see all 40 of these onesies. Cool. Thank you so much, Tannah, and thank you, listeners, and have a great week, everybody. Bye.
thanks. Bye.